Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 202nd.
Oh, you're still getting ready to say 100, eh?
I am. Iteration of the show recorded on the 17th, I want to say, of July 2016. And my name is Josh Trelevin.
Oh, wait for it, right? Make them wait. Anticipation.
And your name, the other voice that the people are hearing?
Co-host extraordinaire, Ryan Kirkby.
Co-host, yeah.
So it's been a not a bad week, I think, all told. All things going on.
It's been a short one because last week we recorded kind of late, and then I uploaded late, so these will come out pretty close after each other. But
that's not too bad, though. I think the big piece of news this week was the Ghostbusters movie. And it's still undecided as to whether or not it's been a flop or whether it's been going good. Apparently,
well, do you know how much money it made?
$46 million, according to the radio I was listening to at work today.
That sounds like a lot to me.
Well, initially, from what I've been told, because I did a little sneak peek sort of stuff over on Wikipedia. Not that I looked at the plot thing. I still want to maintain a little bit of ignorance. If I want to watch the movie, I want to be surprised, right? Apparently, the original projections were $20 million or $30 million, depending, on how things go and who else is releasing that week.
Yeah.
But then they did some extra, stuff, put out some extra, like pizzazz, and they bumped up their estimations to maybe upwards of $50 million.
So they spent another, $20 million or something?
What's the thing is, it wound up being, I think, I remember reading from the budget, $122 million on the movie. And then $100 million worldwide on advertising. Okay,
that seems normal to me. I mean, obviously it's astronomical to a normal person, but having heard about other movies, like
apparently
big movies,
they could funnel $1 million of that to me, and that would have been like a 1% loss.
Yeah,
statistically insignificant. And we could use that $1 million more than what they spent it on.
I'm sure, yeah, totally.
But, they didn't give it to me, so I guess I'm going to have to be honest now. It did not come out in China, which is the second largest global market stage for them.
Yeah, true.
And the reasons for it, for what I've been told, was one, Ghostbusters 1 and 2 was not actually commercially released in China. So the only people that would have known about it would have been from either the cartoon or bootleg, illegal videos.
Yeah.
Which is a legitimate thing in China. It's a huge market there. Bootleg videos out the wazoo.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, technically it's a reboot, so you don't technically have to know about the franchise beforehand.
But also, as it turns out, China is a lot more strict with movie releases that involve ghosts.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Like World of Warcraft, they had to redo the skeleton models in the game.
Yeah, just for China.
Just because China has this superstitious hang-up about dead people, dead bodies, and ghosts.
Or portraying, I think, given, historically, ancestor veneration and the proper, familial piety, that portraying the ghost of the deceased in such an incredibly negative light as the Ghostbusters series is very much wont to do. It could be seen as being almost blasphemous, kind of like swearing a lot. Like in the original Frankenstein, when the Frankenstein monster is being made, they cut out a scene where, Dr. Frankenstein's, now I know what it's like to be a god. And that was considered blasphemous. And they cut it out, and they didn't put it back in the movie until somewhat like the late 70s, I believe it was.
So we're talking a Western culture, which is sort of Christian, I guess, monotheistic.
Very much Christian, yeah. The concept of playing God. Now I know, by God, now I know what it's like to be a god.
Yeah.
Such blasphemy was taken out and kept out for a half century, give or take.
But yeah, China just has different hang-ups.
Exactly. So, I don't want to see this as being like, oh, geez, how weird and crazy and superstitious are they? Because, dude, we cut out an entire line of now I know what it's like to be a god in a context of where one person could legitimately feel like a god because they took a bunch of, corpse pieces, put it together, and then animate it again. That's pretty, treading on the feet of the divine there.
Yeah, but that was decades ago, 5 decades ago. More.
Getting close to a century since the release of Frankenstein.
In America, and so you could say something like, "Oh, well, China is 30 years behind."
They're just
America.
a little bit more conservative in that sort of thing.
Yeah, I suppose. But yeah, like nowadays we had The Watchmen, which had the character of Dr. Manhattan, which was pretty well. Yeah, I'd say that was blasphemous. I don't know, like a human ascended to godhood, basically.
I don't think he very much ascended to godhood, although in the comic it is very much alluded that he has attained what would be perceived as deification.
Yeah.
But he didn't exactly regard himself as being divine, which I guess is a very key critical difference.
Huh? All right.
He just has like a different view of things.
He's just a very, very, very superpowered dude.
Yeah.
Which is that's
who is
interesting.
slowly losing his humanity, which is a key part of the movie and the comic.
That comes up in theological debates sometimes, like how powerful does a being need to be before basically it's indistinguishable from ultimate, omnipotence, I guess.
Well, yeah, I remember like an argument called like the red panty argument, as to the power of a god and whether or not like they would even like be interested with us. Is in this case, let's see, somewhere out there is a very beautiful lady wearing a racy pair of panties. They're colored red. All right, get that in your mind. And now let's imagine a person with a varying area of omniscience.
All right.
So you and me, we're not omniscient at point zero. We were absolutely not. But imagine we got a guy who we hook up to a nice little slider that can actually, like determine how far out his omniscience goes. At a certain point, that person will come across the beautiful lady wearing the pair of racy red panties, and that will fixate the interest. Because it's like, ooh, beautiful lady, red panties.
Okay,
Ooh, sexy.
We're assuming that a heterosexual male, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a little heteronormative in this case,
and
but it works.
Also, he's available and stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe not available.
Although,
it doesn't necessarily be. But suffice to say, like at a certain point, like the red panties will enter into the radius of omniscience, and this guy will wind up being, intrigued and focus more attention on that.
Okay, got it.
But if you keep increasing the radius of the omniscience, there gets a less and less chance of that these racy red panties being the thing that fixates the person.
Okay.
There will be a racier pair. There will be something else more interesting to see.
Yeah, so you're saying you can only focus your attention on so much stuff at one time.
Or there'll just be something even more, attention-getting than these racy red panties. Now, this is an allegory in that humanity and Earth represents the racy red, is represented by the racy red panties.
Yeah.
And so you'd have like this very interesting range of power for what we would consider a god. Too low power, and God wouldn't notice us. We would be too far beyond his scope. Not God-worthy in that case, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a point where it's like, hey, we're in his scope of like detection, and he takes an interest in us. That's like what you consider at least to be a partially active, deity, worthy of our, like attentions.
Yeah.
And then beyond that is like it's too powerful a god, and thus humanity isn't worth the time and effort to expend any concentration on. In which case, it's too much of a god.
Yeah, I don't think I had heard that one before. That is an interesting thought experiment. Yeah.
And it's always entertaining to tell because it involves a pair of racy red panties. So it gets people's attention when you're telling the story, right?
I wonder if the ultimate consciousness, imagine omniscience, whatever that means, just to take this down a tangent. But the ultimate consciousness might almost have to be have multiple things going on at the same time and actually be a collective of consciousnesses.
A hive mind, conscious eye?
I imagine, because that way you could actually focus on multiple things at once. Infinite things, I suppose. I suppose it would be infinite minds, but all somehow connected. But how would you know, once you have that, how would you know when to connect one mind, when one mind has something interesting for another mind to know, when there's infinite number of connections possible for it to
Welcome to philosophy.
Yeah. I suppose it could be some kind of localized and in a grid across the universe, but then that wouldn't really be omniscience, because it would be you'd skip from consciousness to consciousness.
You'd have like a fragmented omniscience, which may wind up being more beneficial for us than true omniscience.
Yeah, because I like speaking of, I think human consciousness kind of actually works that way. Like we're not just one consciousness. I don't think like we have
there is
different
the concept
going
of
on.
the healthy multiplicity of personality and subpersonality.
Yeah, I don't mean that there's like we have like, oh, Josh isn't here right now. This is Mary. I'm 3 years old. Not that, but although that's amusing too.
Yeah.
But just the fact that we have like lots of parts of our brain are doing different things.
Yeah, you can focus on one thing and still pay attention to another.
Yeah, and you have like your memories are in there somewhere stored.
Ready for, drawing up at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Or, when the right music plays or, a good fragrance hit your nostrils. It's like grandma's, home-baked goods. Oh, everything comes back about all how she cooked everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, as it turns out, either a limited, omniscience is more beneficial to us, or a more fragmented omniscience, whereby we could receive a concentrated portion of the divine's attention. Whereas Lovecraft and the like wound up talking about things that were so far beyond us, we're not worth the time or effort to even kill. There's no hatred towards us, but we are so insignificant, there can be no joy or devotion to us either.
Yeah,
which is a very scary thought on a cosmic scale.
And that's not even Cthulhu, because
Cthulhu's sleeping on our planet, so there's like something going on there.
And he sort of relates to humans. I suppose he eats humans. He eats 1-4 adventurers per round.
As the joke goes, yes.
But yeah, there's like a deeper sleeping thing. What do you remember the name of it? Or?
Oh, the week, where his very dreams cause insanity amongst the psychically aware.
Well, I mean, like, isn't there an ultimate being that Lovecraft? Is it Azathoth? Yeah,
well,
I think that's right.
Like, effectively the embodiment of physical mass within the universe.
Yeah, that sounds right. Azathoth.
Yog-Sothoth, which acts as the personification of like time and space throughout the universe.
Okay. Yeah.
And Shub-Niggurath, who winds up being which is interesting with Shub. She is the act of mating. She is biology.
Oh yeah.
Every time you kiss, every time you make love, every time you have a chemical reaction for hatred, love, fear, eating, it's all devotion to her.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is a really weird thing to think about, because she is biology. She spawns and eats her own young, sort of things. They just kind of bud off her. It's really weird. It's Lovecraftian. I mean, there's a reason why we have a word to describe that kind of weird.
That's great. Yeah.
But there, despite the fact, every base physical thing that we do is a veneration of her. All of us, all together, is still so cosmically insignificant that Shub-Niggurath cannot actually, perceive us. We're not even a blip on the radar, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's whoa.
There's a tangent for you.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
Yeah, that's deep stuff, man.
But Ghostbusters, it does tie into that a little bit because they have their, I guess spoiler alert.
Well, at least for the first
Ghostbusters
movie, Gozer wants to come on, to our planet.
He's a kind of a Cthulian. It's a Cthulian entity, I guess. In some way, right?
We'll go semi-Cthulian sort of thing, more towards the Hittites and Mesopotamian sort of crazy, weird god things.
As opposed to Cthulhu is inspired by Sumer and Babylon, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. It's like back then, the concept lines between what is a deity and what is a really powerful monster were never really carved out. It was just kind of like, this thing is so powerful, either you venerate it or you don't, doesn't matter. It's too powerful to care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the legend of, what's the name of the guy with the blue ox? Paul Bunyan.
Yes.
That he changes height depending on what you need for the story, and he can be basically as big as the world if you need him to chop down a really big tree.
Yggdrasil.
Yeah.
Oh, why don't they ever feature him as some sort of villain in Thor?
That would be
Thor has to save Yggdrasil from the horrors of the axe-cutting Paul Bunyan.
The man with the axe.
Yeah, man, come on. Doesn't that sound like it'd be like a good... That sounds like a good Silver Age story, right?
I mean,
then and there.
Like, if I had a computer, I'd Google Paul Bunyan in the comics right now, and I'm sure something would come up. But
but it probably wouldn't be as awesome as I'm imagining.
No, yeah, this is a good team-up idea. Thor versus Paul Bunyan.
Dang straight, man.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of Neil Gaiman's does interesting mashups like that.
Yeah, I've been told his American Gods book was just absolutely beautiful for that. Never did get a chance to read it. I moved out and could not borrow it from my previous roommate. Oh.
I have it somewhere, but I think it's in a box somewhere.
That's okay, because we have a great local library system here, and I can always, search it up when I got the extra time to read a book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so ultimately, I think 46 million, given the fact that they did not have access to China's market, on opening weekend, not bad, not amazing.
Okay.
I mean, was it Deadpool got 125 million its opening weekend, which is spectacular.
Well, that's like a record, yeah, for a rated R film. Ghostbusters was not rated R though. It was rated. I don't know what it was rated.
I think it's PG-13 here in Canada.
I guess it's M somewhere, and yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess depending on your, perspective of ghosts and busting thereof.
Yeah. So last time I checked Rotten Tomatoes, it was at 74%.
See, but that's an interesting split on there, because the critics are giving it rather good reviews, whereas there's a lot of non-critics giving it absolutely horrible reviews.
So, I think it's like the People's Score or something?
There's something down like 44%.
Okay.
But that's the thing. I've been waiting, I've been listening, I've been looking. And word of mouth stuff from actual people that don't have something against the movie, like how dare this violate my childhood.
Yeah.
They have they've been giving it at best adequate. It's like if you want to see some Ghostbusters and you want to see the equipment again, this has got you covered. But don't expect an amazing my goodness, this has changed my life sort of thing. Like the original wound up doing for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was a cult hit. Yeah.
Yeah. It wound up really just like changing the concept of what people thought of ghosts and all that, and supernatural comedies, action movies.
Yeah, it was it was good that way.
So yeah, aggressively adequate is a term I've heard.
Aggressively.
It's really sharp and biting, but not that grand.
I wonder if it's even possible to do in order to sort of do a reinvention or something that blows people's minds, you probably wouldn't be able to just do a straightforward Ghostbusters movie.
No.
Which is, I guess, what they did.
See, now I have been told, however, spoiler alert, the bad guy isn't Gozer, and I would have loved for it to have been Gozer, and that this was the nearest convenient parallel dimension that Ray, asked Gozer to go to in the first movie.
Okay.
They defeat Gozer, and then Gozer does go to the nearest convenient.
He goes to the all-female dimension.
And that would explain why all the cameos of the people from the first movie, Sigourney Weaver, Annie Potts, Ernie Hudson, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, all show up. They all have cameos, but not as the characters they played in the first two movies.
Yeah, right.
So I think that would have tied it all so that way. It's like, oh no, it's like this is just a different dimension where this didn't happen, and now you've got a different name, sort of thing, because different genealogy sort of thing going on.
Well, I'm still in the camp that I wish people wouldn't this. I'm half okay
chance,
with
right?
Star Trek. I'm kind of okay with it because it was an alternate universe. Okay. But I would like to see a few more movies that are that. No, this is a sequel, same universe. Everything that you thought happened did happen. Stick with canon. I know that's harder.
From what I've been told, they were planning on a pass the torch sort of movie, but then Harold Ramis passed away, and with him passed away, and he's one of the writers that helped make the movie. The first two movies, be what they are. They figured maybe a reboot was best because they were having a hard time how to pass the torch without such a key character and such a
maybe
so he was I'll say he was the heart as much as Dan Aykroyd was the soul of Ghostbusters.
Okay, all right.
And so with the heart missing and all that, it was really hard to do a pass the torch sort of thing. And so a reboot wound up being the easiest, best way.
I wonder if Indiana Jones actually kind of soured people on the passing of the torch.
Could have done a little bit better for trying to pass
I
sort of
wonder
thing.
if that was the one that did it.
That's it. It just has to be done right, and like
Yeah.
each one, what qualifies as right is dependent on like the series itself.
Yeah. Star Wars did.
Oh,
pass
and I
the
did figure out the
torch.
fourth
Oh,
person because I was mentioning in the previous podcast, who I would have chosen.
Oh,
for,
right,
like, the thing.
yeah.
I figured out my fourth. It's Chris Rock.
Okay.
He has the charisma to play a Venkman-like character without appearing sleazy.
Okay. Yeah.
So, bam! I finally got my fourth one in for who I'd have cast.
Just to remind us, in case we're curious.
Well, that's the thing is like it just like I was just walking from one room to another, and all of a sudden it popped in my head. Chris Rock has got enough charisma, and he's got that award-winning smile. He could pull off the same sort of lines as Bill Murray, and not appear like some sort of creepy sleaze.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, yeah, there we go. It's my brain solved.
So
Thank you, subconscious.
who was it? Chris Rock, Dan Goodman, or John Goodman? Dan Goodman. Dan.
No,
oh, that's
no,
characters.
no.
Dan. John Goodman. No, not John.
No,
okay.
it's Jack Black.
Jack Black. Okay.
Tina Fey.
Tina Fey. Yeah.
And who did? Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The only weird quirk on this whole thing was that Tina Fey would have replaced Egon, and that would have made the whole secretary coming on to the smart person take a weird little angle when it's
Yes,
got, like,
you mentioned this last time.
Well, that's the thing is it's weird, because like ideally, like it shouldn't really matter who plays what person, but as soon as you add in the lesbian potential angle on the whole thing, it does wind up actually.
That makes it weird. Okay.
Well, it does definitely change. It's weird in that it changes the dynamic so heavily.
Yeah, but I mean, dynamics are going to change. So.
But that's the thing and that's just a very nice, easy example to show how dynamics, of the genders do in fact change. So you can't just say, like, why didn't they just do a redo of the entire original movie and just put 4 girls in there instead of 4 guys? And it's like, well, no. If you do it's like a straight scene for scene, cut change, it actually does change things up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I have heard the argument, well, why don't they just do a reshoot of like the first movie and just update it? And no.
I mean, that wouldn't be my first choice, but okay.
It worked for the Psycho movie. They did the shot-for-shot remake.
Yeah.
Did fairly well in the box office. Not amazing either that way, but But yeah, so I would like to see how things go, because I'm also seeing people like on Imgur and all that, and Twitter, putting out how little people are in the theaters.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's kind of an overall problem too.
But that's the thing is, like, they're saying, oh my goodness, me and like 2 other people are the only ones here in the audience, sort of thing. And then there's like somebody like showing a shot of the theater, and there's just like one person sitting in there.
Yeah.
But those things can easily lie. Like I could start up a Twitter account and say, I went to a Ghostbusters thing there, and it was so busy, everyone had to sit on someone else's shoulders, man.
Yeah, just take a picture in another theater.
Or wait for like the movie to end, be the last people out, or as soon as they're done cleaning up the theater for the next round, get in there first, take the shot, and say this was just before like the movie was about to roll.
Yeah.
So a picture can say 1,000 words, but a lot of those words can also be liar.
Yeah. Do you think maybe it's I want to question this idea of movies being made for massive numbers of. I guess you can't help that. No. I'm already talking myself out of this. But
it is how the paradigm goes. But it's not as bad as it used to be. Thanks to like the 8 to 12 theater sort of things, they're smaller theaters as opposed to what they used to have. They used to be much bigger. Like, here's your 2 theaters, and then just like pack as many people in at once. So they are doing better on that one. And with the break into the release in the theaters and available to watch on like for rent on the cable packages. I don't know if they're doing it on Netflix, Hulu, and all the Crave TV stuff, but I suspect they will be doing that, where you can like rent it and pay a little bit of money as soon as it's out, same time at the theaters. It's going to make it for a much more smaller, much more dedicated audience in that regard. But I think I'm still going to hold off my official verdict on the new Ghostbusters
until you see it.
Until I see it, or at least one more week goes by, so that I can start hearing a little bit more cohesive narrative from the people who have seen it.
Okay.
That's it. I'm hoping like one of my brothers goes sees it and it kind of bites the bullet for me, because if it winds up being like a good movie, with a good rating, and I get the right word of mouth, I really do want to take my daughter to see it. I remember seeing the original Ghostbusters in the theater with my parents, and that was a great memory, and I loved the movie, and I'd love to be able to share that memory with my daughter by recreating it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Sure.
So, here's hoping it winds up being a good movie, and just like a lot of angry people didn't want like a remake. One more week to wait. Other than that, for other news this week, okay, technically it wasn't this week, but we were so full of other news stories last week, I had to bump it to this one. A new version release for the Dwarf Fortress game is out.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and the big thing about this is it's now got 64-bit processing, which doesn't really seem impressive, but it didn't have that before. So this is now actually a step up.
Okay.
This would be the equivalent.
So it's going to run faster, you're saying?
It's going to run faster and a little bit more coherently. If you use the same seed to generate a world, the world will generate out the same as it's always done, but the world history will generate closer to the same way time and again. So let's say you create a world, you generate a history, and it looks pretty good, except you really wanted something with like a really awesome were animal. Like name an animal that would be really awesome to turn into, Josh.
Hedgehog.
Were hedgehogs. You want a were hedgehog, sort of thing in your world, but there are no were hedgehogs in this one. You use the same seed and you try it again, and because stuff like that is selected, fairly randomly, or at least pseudo randomly, there's a good chance of getting different were creatures. So, it's were camels this time. Try it again next time. Were elephants. Actually pretty dangerous. And you keep it up so you get your were hogs, your were hedgehogs. And so that's going to be nice for those who are really big on making sure they've got the right world history for like what they want to see. And yeah, this is the equivalent of like the Nintendo 64 and the Atari Jaguar sort of era for computing capacities. So if you thought you could tell a great story using the computer capacities that did, like Super Mario Brothers 64, then by golly, it's up there now with Dwarf Fortress.
Okay.
Dwarf Fortress is up there with you now.
Yeah, I mean, well, Dwarf Fortress still has it's weird. It's still, sort of arcane and impenetrable for a lot of people, but...
Well, see, that's the thing, is the developer has decided to work more on content, and then, once he's got all the content, then cleaning up the interface and the usability.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he could clean up the usability and make sure it's not that difficult to use, but then keep adding content that'll make it slowly much more difficult and more oblique for understanding.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Why do that chore twice when you can do it just once at the end? And admittedly, sometimes it's kind of fun to, panic. My God, how do I stop them from all, running and doing, the wrong thing? A sock out in the middle of the field of battle has no longer been declared off limits, and all the regular dwarves run out on there to try and collect this somewhat mystical sock they all apparently want. And thus they rush out and get slaughtered by, crossbow goblins. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that has historically happened. Mm-hmm. So yeah, sometimes the panic isn't just the monsters invading, it's protecting your poor little dumb dwarves from killing themselves.
Yeah, alright.
It's a legitimately fun aspect of the game. And let's see, there's a third story this week. News story?
What else do we have? Well, there's real world stuff, but...
okay, yes. A coup has been attempted and largely failed in Turkey.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how often
we don't normally tell real world stories.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
But I did find this interesting for two reasons. One, it was one of those weird sort of coups where you don't necessarily have to, be a participant of it.
What, like if you live in Canada?
No, if you live in Turkey. Like there was one guy, it's like I wound up, like getting Pokemon Go, and I managed to get it cracked, and now I got it here, but I can't go outside because of the coup, and I don't want to get shot.
Yeah, that isn't that how it went? I mean,
that's what like people were legitimately lamenting. It's like, I got Pokemon Go on I can't go outside and play because there's a military coup being attempted right now.
Yeah. But they did have a lot of regular people kind of turned out.
Well, that's the thing is like,
kind of both sides, I think.
The head of state, went on the radio and said, "Hey, stop this coup, go out and fight, and protect your nation," and they did.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that really, made it hard for the coup to succeed when all the people were fighting.
Yeah.
But that said, you didn't want to, man. Just stay at home, just play your video games. Power doesn't get cut off, and it was an oddly civil coup in that regard, in that they did try to shut off the power, get everybody out of here, we're gonna bomb everything, So it wound up being like, okay,
they did drop a lot of bombs, but I think it's a very large country, so chances are you're one of the millions of people who are less affected, I suppose.
Like, our nation's undergoing a coup, and I'm just sitting here playing Skyrim again.
But, I mean, definitely some people were bombed and stuff, and, some people probably lost power in some small areas and stuff.
But it was almost surreal for a lot of people, because it's just the regular life, but over in the city next to you, that's where all the fighting's going on.
Yeah,
but it's not spilling out over to your area.
I mean, I remember during the election with Erdogan, just to make this the politics podcast, during the election, one of his tricks was actually to turn off power to certain cities where basically people were going to vote against him. I don't know if it was him directly or like somebody trying to work for him or a supporter.
Which is another thing that's being levied against him, is that he is at least somehow behind the coup in an attempt to now purge all opposing forces.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing, and I guess this is what we can kind of talk about.
It's conspiracy theory, so this is kind of works into our conspiracy corner.
Yeah, because we're trying to figure out where this coup comes from, and it apparently doesn't come from there's this cleric who lives in Pennsylvania in the United States.
Yeah, he's the one who was the heart behind this coup.
Well, they're accusing him of that, but he's saying no. He was saying he had nothing to do with it. He's saying that's not what we do. So there's all of that, and he definitely does have, what do you call it? He has influence.
Yeah.
He controls I don't know about controls, but he has influence over a lot of people in that country, in Turkey. But apparently maybe it was him, maybe it was Erdogan, maybe it was somebody else. It's this whole mystery of who is
the whodunit of the coup.
Yeah. But the other thing is also it's all sort of out in the open. It's definitely it's military people. It's we're the military. We're doing this. They're not sneaking around.
Mind you, the military in Turkey isn't the same as the military here in North America. They do not answer to the government, and one of their primary charges is to try and keep the vision as espoused by Turkey when it was forged, once upon a time. And they've done coups before, and they always hand the power back.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of he said, she said sort of thing, on either side as to who's doing what, what nefarious forces are going on here. It's a prime example of the mystery genre as well as conspiracies.
Yeah.
It's a false flag operation. Now, Erdogan will be able to purge the entire nation of dissidents and others.
That's what he's saying, yeah.
But
the other thing is, if you're planning a coup, if you have this idea, okay, guys, we're gonna finally
we got to get this guy out of office.
How do you know what percentage of this is the military doing this, right? How do you know what percentage of the military is going to go along with it? Because obviously it would have succeeded if the entire military had been we're doing it.
Yes, I had heard that.
Right?
Is if it was involved this head, and this head, it would have happened. It would have been done. It would have been taken about 45 minutes and be over.
Yeah. But I guess part of the problem is Erdogan cracks down on things like media and communications, so maybe they didn't have the proper ability to communicate with each other and coordinate, and maybe they were falsely led to believe that certain factions would go along with them and ended up not. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, sorry guys, we slept in. We totally meant to help you out with the coup.
But to relate this to like RPGs, I don't know. Can we?
Well, that's the thing is, like I was thinking in terms of D&D, it's like like I don't recall hearing about coups really happening in like the fantasy genre, because in that case it's more like the Sword and the Stone sort of thing. You meet the requirements, you get the MacGuffin, and then you just get handed the throne.
Yeah.
You become worthy of it. You don't like necessarily take it from someone other than say like with Lord of the Rings with what's his face, the entire Seneschal's family.
Oh, the Wardens, Guardians.
Yeah,
what are they
Gondor,
called?
The
Stewards.
The Stewards of Gondor.
Stewards of Gondor. There we go. We got there.
It's a term. It's synonymous with so many other words.
Yeah.
But yeah, like sometimes there's like someone running the place. Other times, a lot of times in fantasy, it's just like there is no head of state. Everyone's just kind of miserable and nothing's really getting done. But apparently you really don't need a head of state because everything's still happening.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, like in history, our example, like probably for medieval and early modern history, which is where we get ideas for D&D, we have sort of succession often by birth or by appointment, and I think it's
with
sort
birthright you can work through investiture, in which case it's more of a magic power lineage as opposed to blood lineage.
Yeah.
Which is a legitimate thing, but they do have a bit for that.
Yeah. And then I guess when it does happen that it's sort of a violent overthrow or somebody's like does a coup, often they will say, well, actually, this guy is the second cousin of so-and-so, so he technically does have the blood, so we're putting him up.
Claim to the throne.
Yeah, so he's going to be our guy.
Which is interesting because I just finished watching the final season of Legend of Korra. And in it, it's a 3-year time lapse between the end of Season 3 and the start of Season 4. And the Earth Kingdom had gone into all disarray and now is being solidified under, spoiler alert, the new big bad for Season 4. And she's supposed to step down and hand it over to Prince Wu, who will become king. But Wu is really not kingly material. And, she wound up, getting, the entire nation pretty much back in order and back in place. Mm-hmm. And so when everyone's reacting to her saying, no, I won't give up my power to this, buffoonish kid, this man-child, I found it really hard to see her as the villain at first, because it's no, he did nothing to try and reunite the nation. She did all the work. Shouldn't she be the one to reap the rewards? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it really took me some convincing on that one to figure out who's the bad guy and why a blood claim to the throne is something that is legitimately good.
Yeah, I'll mention also, we just watched Epic Rap Battles of History featuring Ivan the Terrible and Alexander the Great. And I was just remembering there was a Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast, which I'll have to link now. I might not be able to find the exact episode, but anyways, he talks about Ivan the Terrible and how basically his life was terrible, and that's how because they treated him horribly, they passed him around from family to family, and each family was either abusive or killing relatives and whatever.
As was the style of the time.
I guess so. I guess
so
that was
a lot of political history. That's kind of what you did.
Yeah, I guess it was, and then so he ends up being this sort of vicious tyrant with all kinds of weird hang-ups and stuff. It's no wonder, he's been through, all this crazy stuff.
It's not, if anyone was surprised, they weren't paying attention.
Yeah, and also in a lot of the actions that he took, they say, it's, barbaric, horrible, but, he took them for a reason. Maybe ethically I wouldn't do the same thing.
But Vlad the Impaler sort of thing.
Yeah.
He was a monster, impaling, people and all that sort of thing. But his ultimate goal was keeping his claim to the throne and keeping out those invaders.
Yeah. And I imagine, if you were transported back to the days 1200s to 1400s to 1600s, I guess Ivan the Terrible was...
I wouldn't like to be doing it, but I could definitely see myself impaling foes on a spike to prevent my soul. Well, because that's the thing.
I wasn't going to go that far, but okay.
Well, because that's the thing.
You would do that.
I was hearing on the news, about, some of the soldiers from World War II. How they're hitting 90, 91 years old. Their stories are going to get lost if someone doesn't record them down.
Okay.
And one of the lines that got used was, the rules of combat. And I'm like, that's pretty much bunk. Like, I understand the Geneva Convention and how, doing horrible things is horrible. But, like, by the time you get into a nation-on-nation war, you've pretty much, failed on every conceivable civilized level. And so if I was running a battle faction sort of thing in some sort of war, I would do everything in my power to make certain that my soldiers are not the ones dying out there. And to hell with anyone who faces up against me.
Okay.
So apparently, yes, I would wind up being Ryan the Terrible.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, like, if I ended up back then, I would probably just not have the stomach for it, and I'd just end up being one of the guys impaled, basically. I don't
Tell
think
you what, we'll put you as Josh the Decent, and you can hide out in, like, a cloister somewhere.
If I can, run away and hide, I guess I'll do that.
You can you know how to read, so that means you can help transcribe, like, books and all that stuff. That's a very valuable profession.
Well, okay, yeah, it means I don't get impaled, so, yeah.
You're one of the last ones to go, because, I mean, like, dude, gotta read.
Although I feel like in that era, like, we just look back at the last 30, 40 years and how the treatment of nerds used to be a lot, how people used to treat nerds just in our own lifetimes. I wonder, like, if you go back 500 years, how are nerds treated then?
Like, hey, what does this say? We need someone to read it for us.
Yeah, I guess it's the same old Bill Gates, you'll be working for a nerd one day kind of deal.
Yeah, or at least you'll have to, like, put up with them sort of thing.
But I'd imagine.
But no, I would be Ryan the Unholy.
Okay.
Or the Sabulia and all that, man. I would be absolutely demonic.
Oh, man.
Like, because I just, like, if I get I don't understand why people weren't all this terrible sort of thing. Because don't you want to make sure there's no war? Don't you want to make certain that you don't have to keep fighting for everything all the time? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe I was born too late.
I mean, if you read some things like Sun Tzu and the Prince and stuff, there are ways to sort of, because war is ultimately kind of a waste, even back then. So you got to figure out a way to win a battle without firing a shot, stuff like that.
Well, that's the thing is, I do recall one person. I don't know if I think it was Sun Tzu. And he was telling a story about the greatest healer in all the nation, and one of his patients asked, how are you the greatest, medical practitioner in all of whatever area. I don't think it was a unified China sort of thing going on. I think it was one of them fractious periods. But how come you're the best man in the land for healing? He says, I'm not. I'm the third best. My brothers are better, but they heal people so well that they don't get sick. They do preventative medicine, is effectively what he was telling them. And so their patients don't get sick, so they don't get the great word of mouth about how well they can heal the people that do get sick, because their patients just don't succumb.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so, that's the same sort of thing. The best ones, make sure that doesn't happen for a war. War is the equivalent of a sickness for them, and I think that's a very wise way to look at it. War is an illness.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting more back towards the point sort of thing, it's not really a fantasy, genre sort of thing to see the coup as like a failure of politics, because especially in stuff like D&D, fighting is the main, a mechanic, and so guess you're fighting a whole bunch of enemy troops now.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't Julius Caesar. That was a coup, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like there's been coups through a lot of recorded history.
Yeah.
But it just hasn't solidified in the same way in the fantasy genre.
Yeah.
So I suppose if you want to write a big, wonderful new fantasy novel, it's going to make you $20 million, get you, like I said, movies and all that fun stuff. But you really are hung up as to how to work things, and what's your hook? Try a fantasy coup, because apparently it hasn't had that true note that rings strong and free that everyone winds up using.
Yeah. Well,
as the basis.
Game of Thrones, the whole impetus for the action that precipitates the entire novel is a coup. They kill the Mad King, and then everything that happens is because of that.
Yeah, apparently the Mad King was a pretty sane guy, because without him, things seem to be going pretty badly to pot.
Yeah. Maybe you just have multiple Mad Kings now instead.
Well, and a lot of corpses.
I am kind of curious, like, this is a big question I have about the Game of Thrones universe, is it's so chaotic and so dynamic, and things change, like, on a dime. It's like, oh, this army, then this baddie, oh, people are dying, like, all over the place, and more people die. But, like, I'm wondering, like, when it comes to the actual end of the series, like, is that when sort of peace is restored, or a relative peace to the land? Or does summer come back to the land, I'm wondering?
I think so, yeah. Relative peace.
I guess it has to, right? Eventually things have to sort of...
Eventually you're going to run out of people to kill.
Yeah. And then the epilogue is just like, and that's how, now we have a modern age where everything is peaceful. And yes, that was very bloody, and we never want to do it again.
For 30 years before this person dies, and it happens again.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm curious about. Like, and maybe I'm curious about, like, what that says about George R.R. Martin's sort of political philosophy and his historical. Because I guess in human history, we seem to repeat ourselves. The War of the Roses was bad, but immediately following that, how many other wars were there? And that didn't stop World War I and II, which were, the bloodiest things ever.
The Boer War, it was basically just, new factions, and new locations. But the event stays the same.
Yeah.
Just new cast, new crew.
Woo. But, yeah, who is going to sit on the Iron... wait, is it the Iron Throne?
I think
so. It's
Yeah.
the Iron Throne, because it's made of iron swords.
Yeah. Not comfortable. I'd rather sit on, the Velvet Throne.
That's true. Did you ever see that? Did I tell you about the picture of the Iron Throne that someone drew? Because in the television show, in the series, it's this chair-shaped, chair-sized a man could sit on it and be like, yeah, this is a throne made out of swords. But
pretty
in the
boss, and no one's going to argue that.
Well, yeah. But in the books, and also some people have attempted illustrating it, it's 2 stories high, basically, because it's, I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of swords, because it's an entire army's worth of swords, all of the armies that were left over, and he made those all into a throne. So you have to, in order to sit on there, you climb up 2 flights of stairs. I guess they're stairs made out of other swords, or whatever.
I don't know. Wouldn't it be better just to have a pulley winch system to get on up?
Yeah, like what they have at the wall, sure.
Yeah. That'd be a lot better and be safer too, because that way if you slip and fall, dude, you're already in the harness and you're hooked up, as opposed to, oh my god, I'm falling onto the Sword of Thrones.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody actually sits on that, the main throne, or maybe it's I guess it would be ceremonial, because people get crowned and stuff, like King Joffrey gets crowned and stuff.
So now I'm imagining, is it just the one seat, or is there multiple, other little seats sitting around there? So okay, this side's got my concubines, this one's got my political marriages.
There's definitely enough room.
This one's got my, kids and grandkids going on down here. But I am at the head of it.
I suppose, yeah, if I was designing it, because it's hard to hold council when you're 2 stories up and everybody else you have to shout down into the throne room at them. Unless you
just have them all meet in the courtyard, and you go sit on a regular seat and just yell out the window. Seems more comfortable.
Yeah.
All the people out in the courtyard get some sun.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the Mad King was just always yelling his orders. That's why they thought him mad.
He just keeps sitting on that damn chair every morning after his coffee. He sits down on that damn chair. No one can hear him. He must be mad.
And then if you have to go to the bathroom, you're the king, so you just maybe have a little. You don't want to climb all the way down.
You got a servant for that, man.
Yeah, just go in a bucket and the servant carries the bucket away.
No, the servant takes the bucket up.
Oh, okay.
And then he comes back down.
Or lowers it from the ceiling. You're probably almost hitting the ceiling at this point, I guess.
Well, you got to make a room just for that.
It's a very large throne room, obviously. Yeah.
But yes, the concept of a coup is very much against the fantasy genre, but it is seen in other spots. I mean, you go to the superhero stuff, there's always a madman trying to get world domination. He effectively has to do, how many nations we got on Earth? 186?
195, I would say.
We'll say about 200 coups he's got to go through.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to take over the world, that's a 200 coup operation going on there.
I suppose, yeah.
And nobody even bats an eye in a coup that's going on there. That's just, oh yeah, it's superhero. So wait for so and so man to come and save the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the closest thing we had to that we had the Nazis in World War II sort of, took over neighboring countries that had factions within them that were like pro-Nazi and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, they were surprisingly popular before then. Stuff started getting out about places like Auschwitz.
Yeah, so a lot of the first countries they took over were relatively easy because they just said, okay, now the Nazis are in power. Well, now the 30% of people who were voting Nazis already anyways, well, now they're the leaders.
Yeah. It was a weird appeasement time going on for that. Ugh, what a horrible.
It was, yeah, World War II, bad time? Okay, good stance.
Well, just the fact that they, let it effectively, kind of seep out. It wasn't just like, now poor, endless Nazis across the continent. It's like, no, we're going here, and everyone's like, okay. Now we're going here, okay. Now we're marching to France. What? It's like, why were you guys surprised? Like, come on. Like, come on, guys. Did you not pay attention? Like, were you just reading the funny papers in your newspapers? Like, come on, man. I've seen the funnies from that time. They weren't that funny.
They weren't, but they were all they had.
I mean, they were good, but I wouldn't say like, ha ha ha. They really made me laugh every time. They told good stories, but they weren't funny. Not like some of the stuff they got now. Pearls Before Swine and Dilbert. Now that's funny stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. It's very interesting when you watch the world news and compare it to the other genres to see how frequent something like that happens.
Yeah.
And by that sort of analysis, you can really figure out what areas have not been done well enough, or maybe just let your deficit for your reading in that genre.
I suppose, if you're creating a D&D world, if you're doing world creation, and you have a place that doesn't have people who are hungry for power, like ready to pounce as soon as there's weakness, there's probably something you're not doing your due diligence.
There's something going on. There's someone putting something in the water.
Yeah. So there should always be someone who's kind of interested in like how can I stir things up, or for my own advantage often, but or maybe maybe they're separatists or whatever. There's always somebody.
Or maybe they're uniters. They just want to unite a bunch of nations together under their rule.
Yeah, like Hitler.
Yeah, he was a uniter. Not in the way you'd want, but he was a uniter. But yes, I did anything important in fiction this week for yourself, Josh?
I did. I mean, pretty much no. I did go log into Minecraft. I just basically carried items from one base to another. I did a lot of moving, consolidating, I guess you might want to call it, just because I have a nice big storage building with all chests and stuff in it, and everything sorted nicely. So yeah, basically put things in there. I played some Candy Crush. That's my video game of choice, I guess.
Pokemon Go got released, by the way, today.
Oh, wait.
In Canada.
Oh, so we have it now.
Legally, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, very good.
We crashed the servers.
I will say, I went walking today. Me and Janelle went walking, and we saw lots of people out with phones. So I think we saw a lot of people
getting people exercise.
Pokemon. It was a fantastic day in Victoria for it. It was beautiful out. Yeah.
Very nice.
We went to the petting zoo, so we saw more animals. I remember last week I talked.
These animals really exist. I can't capture them at all.
I know. That was my what I've been doing this week in games. Last week was I saw some animals. Well, I saw more animals this week. And one other thing in just personal stuff.
A lot of people saw animals though this week. A lot of animals.
Well, I mean, humans count as animals, so...
Yeah, but these are sort of like Rattata
non-human animals? Oh, yes, okay. But yeah, one other thing that I've been up to, or am going to be up to, is tomorrow night. The podcast will be uploaded hopefully tomorrow. So that same night, I'm going to be hosting the open mic.
Ooh.
Co-hosting with another very funny comedian, Evan Mumford. So I'm very excited about that. This is a big step for me.
Question?
What?
Is he related to the Magic Mumford?
No.
Oh.
Good
no
question,
peanut butter sandwich.
I don't know the Magic Mumford.
He's from Sesame Street.
Okay.
A la peanut butter sandwiches, and then his magic would go wrong in a hilarious way.
Oh, was that on when we were kids, or
when we were kids?
Once in a
time? No, not for Zoey.
Because I don't really remember that one. But
oh. Apparently I have a really good memory for Muppets and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
He's not related to Mumford and Sons either, in case you're wondering about that. But
no, because they're not related to the Magic Mumford. I already knew that.
Oh, okay.
Don't ask how I know. I Google a lot.
But yeah, like if any of our listeners are in Victoria, happen to be there tomorrow, come on down.
Yeah. Get your laugh on.
It's gonna be very funny. It's an open mic, so you know, some people are not that funny, but it's
fun to watch them fail.
That's the exact the fun thing. Yeah. So yeah, and any Monday actually, you know, Monday or Thursday, people come down and see me, introduce yourself to me, or I'll introduce myself to you, and see us in person. Like,
very nice.
See what I look like in
Dig it.
real life. Yeah, that's been my week. So yeah, what your week?
The big thing, because I did a bunch of games and all that stuff, but it wasn't too much stuff, just playing them for fun. But the big thing this week was watching Ghostbusters 2.
Oh yeah, okay.
With my daughter, she hadn't seen it yet, and we have her here, and she's going to give it a little bit of a review. Okay, Josh. Now you're listening to this in the future. You cut this out and you put in the other piece there, and now we're done.
Got it.
Okay. So Zoe, you got a chance to watch Ghostbusters 2 this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like it? Did you hate it? What was it like?
The Ghostbusters got trapped.
Who trapped them?
Because their voiceover was so silly.
They were being silly and then they got trapped?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be the insane asylum they got sent to. That's how Zoe sees it. They just got trapped. So was it a funny movie? Was it a scary movie? What kind of movie was it?
It was a scary movie.
Oh, were the ghosties really scary?
Uh-huh.
And how about all that slime?
And that slime didn't scare me at all.
Oh, that's good. Slime is not scary, but the ghosts are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about the music?
And the music was very good, but it sounds like a little bit too. It sounds like a little bit too the other one we just watched.
Oh, some of the songs were from the previous Ghostbusters, you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of them were different, but they did want to keep some of the traditional, songs in there. Make sure everyone remembers that it's Ghostbusters. So, what would you like to have seen more of in Ghostbusters 2?
We only have one, and we hope, and we decided to get another one.
Yeah. What would you like to have seen more of? Would you like to have seen them put on their Ghostbuster suits more often?
Yeah, I get a goosebumps. Goosebumps says I'm sleepy.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a good enough little review for you. So thank you, Zoe. You've been a great help to us.
Mm-hmm.
Say goodbye to everyone out there.
Bye.
I gotta say though, there was a personal bit of weirdness for me because I don't have Ghostbusters 2 on CD. I have it on VHS. So I had to hook up, the stuff, got the cassette recorder, get the VCR.
You have an old VCR?
I have a working VCR.
Oh, yeah.
I'm that kind of guy. And immediately, what I noticed was like the quality. It's like the VHS, sort of thing was not as good a quality, not as sharp an image.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that, and I didn't realize, like, when we upgraded to CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays, just how good and crisp and clean the image was. I just had gotten used to it. And rewind, as soon as I put the movie in, I realized I forgot to rewind it last time. That's a thing I had to do back in time. Rewind movies like a savage.
Well, I mean, some VCRs, the latest models, when they reach the end, they automatically rewind.
Well, that's the thing. I just stopped it during the credits.
Oh, yeah.
And I just didn't... I did rewind at the end of this time. I was kind. I did rewind.
Right. For the next time, you're going to drag it out and dust it off.
Oh, I might, sort of thing. Like Zoe did seem to enjoy it.
Okay.
But it's just weird because like when I stopped the thing, it's just like chunk, and you could hear like the VCR actually stopping with the little tape reels chunk stopping there.
Oh yeah.
And then when I started back up again, it went blue for a second, and then the image started again. So every time I had to pause and like rewind it because Zoe said something and I needed it back up a little bit, it was a lot more clunky than the new style. The new style has been around since probably most of our listeners were kids.
Yeah.
And it struck me as being a really, really like archaic sort of thing, because it immediately brought me to mind of the last time I tried to play Diablo 2. Played Diablo 2 in the day, loved it, had a lot of fun, played it with roommates, and woo, everyone's having good times, right? We go on to other stuff, play World of Warcraft, play the other games, and then when I went back to Diablo 2, it seemed so clunky, slow, and like repetitive. It didn't have that oh boy, I can always do something different. It's like, no, I'm a one-trick pony because I don't have enough points in there, and if I click the wrong button, I'm completely blown my entire character. And this was something similar. I think a lot of people just completely forgot how clunky things used to be. Like cassette tapes and VCRs, and all the whole VHS cassettes and all that. Just like it was clunky. And how did I forget that? How can I remember in the future how great we got it now? I want to skip ahead to watch this thing. I can do that.
Yeah.
If I wanted to watch The Legend of Korra on the VHS cassette, I'd need several of them, and I'd have to watch them in sequence, and I couldn't go back and see a previous scene without doing a lot of very arduous rewinding.
Yeah.
Just like, wow, what a time we live in. But yeah, that was my big thing this week. Just learning to enjoy the future we live in.
That's cool. Yeah.
We do have a bit of a topic this week, though.
Okay, and for our main topic.
It's something we've been meaning to get going on for a while now, but other things always kept cropping up and being, oh yeah, we'll do that right away. And we have mentioned it earlier on in the podcast. It's omniscience, knowing everything. Or I like how they used to do it in China. Like they used to say, like, knowing 10,000 things. Didn't mean literally knowing 10,000 things. It was a nice poetic way of saying I know everything.
Oh, yeah.
Without using the word omniscience. It was just really poetic, very beautiful that way.
Yeah. What do you think? What is our current the closest number that we have to infinity? Would it be a Googleplex?
Well, I mean, we do
like
have
in common parlance, I guess.
Yeah, we do have the infinity as a word, so it's now much more of a solidified concept than historically it has ever been.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like Google bajillions and all that.
Yeah, we say bajillions or zillions. Yeah, sort of a fantasy large number. Yeah.
A number so large it's no longer bound by actual numbers.
Yeah.
Which is, pretty when you think about it that way, it's pretty boss. When you say, oh, bajillion isn't a real word, it's like, that's how big it is. It has to be an unreal word to describe it.
Yeah. I think if you look around in the math literature too, like every once in a while someone will break out those like bajillions and say, oh, I got this new concept for a number I'm going to need, like it's more than exponents, it's different, but it's, a really big number, so I'll just call them bajillions or whatever.
But nothing's ever really attached on well enough to take off.
I don't think there's any official bajillions, or zillions or whatever, gillions. But there are non-aliens.
Yeah, non-aliens, octillions, decillions, and all that, and all the whole proper naming thing. But after a certain point in time, they just don't have the same wonderful elegance of 10,000 things.
Okay. Yeah.
I am he who knows 10,000 things.
Well, in Chinese, the word for 10,000 is, I want to say it's wan. Mm-hmm. Like that, just one. Well, it sounds like one, but...
Well, so that's the thing, is, because the original Avatar had Wang Shi Tung, he who knows 10,000 things. That's literally his name.
Yeah.
And he was like a giant owl that somehow turned into like a cool owl dragon thing when he got angry. He was boss, man. Yeah.
So that's something we're missing in English, is a nice one syllable or even two... Well, Google works for that. Google's a nice two-syllable word that means... incredibly large number.
Infinity is 4 syllables, and it does kind of, like embody it in a much more comprehensive manner.
Yeah.
And we do have a symbol for it, the lazy 8 sort of style, right?
Yeah, late 8 on its side, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty boss. But what does it mean to know that? Because, I mean, like, eventually, at a certain point in time, like, you're in a fantasy campaign, you're going to, like, have a god or someone who knows everything. And what does it mean to actually know all that stuff? Because I remember looking in 3rd edition, and there'd be like a rank 17 deity, which would be like one of the greater gods sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they know what's going to happen related to their portfolio 17 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
So if it's like a god of, like a war, and you try and wage war against the god of war, they were going to know it was going to happen so many weeks in advance.
Yeah.
But they didn't know everything 17 weeks in advance. Just, when people are going to, start smacking each other around. In that regard.
Well, anytime you have that, it's open to being broken, and you can do this in the narrative and play with it. But anytime you open a world as like they know this much, you can always find another angle of like, oh, well, since they know this, they can prevent so and so by doing this and that, and so you can almost cheat any problem.
But if like the god of war then prevents the war from happening, how did the god of war know it was going to happen if they can't see it happening because it didn't happen?
Well, I guess they have to have some sort of sense of what would happen or alternate realities, probably. Like alternate niscience. Alternate niscience? I like it.
Transniscience.
Transniscience, yeah.
Yeah. Paraniscience?
Transience is, I think that's a word. But
transient's a thing, but it kind of refers to something else. Para-omniscience?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Parallel omniscience, yeah. But yeah, so like, I guess that's another question we can ask. Like, do deities have parallel omniscience? Or?
It was never mentioned as being something in the stat books.
I guess it's not mentioned, yeah.
But it does create some weird things. I mean, I would personally rule it as, okay, yeah, the god of war prevents a war and thus should not have seen it coming because it didn't then actually happen. And then now here comes this nice little, temporal paradox monster.
I will say one other thing.
That's why the gods don't intervene all that often. They don't want to have to fight these dang paradox beasts.
Yeah, well, I was going to, on that topic on gods not interceding, one of the things you see in Greek mythology is that every once in a while the gods are described as, suddenly they take an interest, like sort of almost randomly, like suddenly.
Let's face it, with Zeus, we knew why he was taking an interest.
Yeah, but even in the case of what's the gray-eyed goddess Athena, sometimes takes an interest in a champion. It's like, suddenly Athena likes this guy and has his hand on him, and I don't know if she's going to keep on giving him her blessing or not.
Her handy.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the idea of attention that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. Is that you can't necessarily have infinite attention. You can have infinite knowledge, but your gaze can only lie on one sort of thing at a time.
Even a god can only focus on so many things at a time.
Yeah, so that also explains why the gods can be seen sometimes as kind of capricious or flaky, I guess.
Something else has caught their attention and it's much more important than you.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah.
God out. Peace. Kind of makes a bit of sense, I suppose. But how about we focus this more on the player sort of thing? Because I remember in 3rd edition, I mean, you could get your level plus 3 ranks in a skill. So that's, at level 20, 23 ranks, plus you're a wizard sort of thing, because they're more towards the omniscient. You don't see very many omniscient, fighters, right?
Okay, yeah, wizard.
It suddenly occurs to me, fighter was a bad choice to make. But yeah, we'll say let's say a 30 intelligence for an added 10 on that. For a 33 plus synergy bonuses, you could easily get a plus 40 to any of your checks. That's pretty darn close to omniscient. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah,
there was a nice, easy sort of thing where it was, giving a bonus to a skill was like the skill, times itself times by a certain amount. So you could have another plus 30 on top of that for, from like a magical ring of knowing stuff, related to this one field. So yeah, you could have a plus 70 to your checks by level 20.
Yeah.
With a little, min-maxing sort of stuff going on there. Focus.
The main problem I actually have with that is just that would be books and books for the DM to actually have and know. Because now it's become a problem of too much for our real world people to...
Exactly. I mean, that's like a lot of, knowledge this one guy has. So how do you work that into a game?
Yeah. But I guess in the game it's effectively, if you need to know it, you know it, basically.
Right? So I guess that's a lot like what they say for... I remember, I was Girl Genius, the webcomic sort of thing, and Dave Barrick, the writer and illustrator, marked as to how difficult sometimes knowledge was. Super knowledge is easy to have. You know, like if you're making up a super science, of course you know this. But the real world knowledge is difficult because it's actually real world knowledge.
Yeah.
So nobody in a comic can be more real worldly smart than the author, which is a really big problem sometimes, depending on the author.
Yeah, true. I'm just picturing imagine a D&D game in which one of the players has that ungodly.
Well, trust me, I'll call it an ungodly plus 70 to their
plus
check.
70 to their check. At that point, I almost want to say say it's knowledge.
Arcana.
Okay, knowledge arcana, and knowledge skills sometimes they bleed off in other areas. So like a DC 80 knowledge arcana check might be a DC 120 nature or no.
Yeah,
well, whatever. You might know nature.
Go nature or the planes check.
Yeah, you might know more basically about other things. So I'm imagining at that point the DM just being just drop the shield, drop the DM shield, just say here's my notes. You know everything in here, and then play that way.
Yeah, what if it's a plus 70 knowledge history?
Yeah, something like knowledge history. Yeah.
You get to take the book to the table with you. You get to tell the DM how it happened. What really went on.
Yeah.
And then you got games like Shadowrun, where having that sort of high score is something you can specialize in because it's not exactly level based. You can focus and you can have your skill and then your specialization. And in some of the older editions, they had what was called a skill web, where you have all your skills related and how they relate to a stat and each other, and then how the stats relate to each other. So it was something along like a mutant, like carbon ring is a nice way of describing its image. And you'd have these weird things like, okay, if I want to, learn, I want to drive a tank. And I want to base that off of my ability to play a piano. There was a way for that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And provided the fact that your skill in playing the piano was high, so high that it beat the bonuses, because, every time you went through a different node, it added +2, and every time you had to default to a different ability score, it was +4. So you could try and default your ability to drive a tank off your reaction skill, which would be good, off of say your intellect, your ability. That's a little further away, and then off of your ability to play a piano, which is even farther. So most of the time, you'd want to base it off your reaction because the modifiers don't add up so badly that way.
Yeah.
But if your skill in playing that piano is like a 17, you have a much better chance at defaulting off of playing your piano. And so, with people who really specialized and really spent all those points to get that one incredibly, stupidly high score, they have effectively this weird bleed out of omniscience, where because they can play the piano so well, they can drive a tank masterfully.
Right. Yeah. Okay. 10,000 things. Oh, well, is this another tangent? But you don't always sometimes things are not known to anybody.
Ooh,
the exact number of people in a kingdom. You can do a census for that. But sometimes
there
censuses
could be a spell for that. I could see.
Well, I guess you cast a spell and
it wouldn't be exactly a low-level spell.
Yeah, divination, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, divination sort of thing. You'd probably need one heck of a scrying focus on something like that.
Yeah.
Get yourself... Oh, yeah, what was it? The Palantirs? How they were different sizes, and there's one that was the size of a room.
Okay.
You'd need that one. That's the Palantir you need to do a census of all the people in your kingdom.
Yeah.
That said, it might be overwhelming just to have all that information. Because, let's think about the Doomsday Book.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the actual Doomsday Book was a book that was... when the Normans, took and invaded and took over England, they did a census. How many people are in this town, who owns what, and who owes how much for taxes. Mm-hmm. And I really, if you can find it, find the episode of History Bites. It's a Canadian comedy history program that utilizes the aspect of television to explain historical events. And in it, Rick Green explains it as being like a snapshot of England when nobody was really prepared to have their snapshot taken.
Right.
because it told a lot, sort of thing. But this was not something that just somebody like wrote down into a quick thing. This took a lot of time to do a census. They had like census people out and about everywhere, and they had to root stuff out because people were trying and hide. Like, oh, you know, like I don't own any ponds or any ducks or any fish. Oh, look, here on your property I found a pond and it's got like a dozen ducks, and look, it's just positively full of fish. Look how rich you are. We need to have you pay taxes on that. So it was kind of like a medieval IRS audit of an entire nation. And so like the mundane aspect of getting all that information, I think is better storytelling to get that 10,000 things for information than as opposed to just a simple magical spell. And so there's something to be said about, you know, like, because let's face it, tax collectors make enemies. So whether or not the players want to be tax collectors or just be the people trying to protect the tax collectors, or maybe even be people trying to put one over on the tax collectors, well, that's all different fun stories you can wind up telling from that bit. In the pursuit of the king's attempt to get that 10,000 things infinite knowledge of his new realm.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Like, in the default version of D&D, divination is pretty much unlimited. Like, it sort of does whatever you need it to do. Legend lore will just answer about an item. But like,
provided it's got the right prerequisites. Like, legend lore won't answer any questions about a person until they're 11 levels or 11 hit die.
Yeah,
That is the apparent cutoff mark for what qualifies as legendary.
Right.
Keep that in mind, by the way. You know, like, you don't have to hit 20 levels to be legendary. That happens at level 11.
But what if divination was a little bit different, I guess in a different world or game setting, and it was only it could only give you things that other people know, like only stuff, I don't know how you, like, it communicates to other brains. Or maybe it's more like charm, I guess, in that sense, but you know what I mean?
More of like a psychic discipline.
Yeah, actually, yeah, like clairvoyance or something.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is it still works back into this weird like double knowledge sort of thing. Like the god of secrets knows what other people don't.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you don't know the population of the kingdom, does the god of secrets know it?
Maybe. Although I imagine
he's not going to tell because it's a secret.
Yeah, probably your low-level divination spell isn't necessarily going to reach him because he'll be shielded from it. But I suppose, yeah, if you get high enough level, 20 level, and cast a 9th
The only problem
spell.
is with most aspects of 3rd edition, the only god of secrets was not a good god of secrets. It was like Vecna.
Okay.
In which case, contacting Vecna is never a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, probably not.
So yeah, there might be that thing about the price you have to pay for it. The same way as getting like the divine oracle to answer your questions sort of thing. You got to complete the tasks the oracle sets forth.
Yeah.
Which I think is very good storytelling. Because like nothing comes for free, right? You got to earn it.
Yeah.
You can't just toss down like a whole bunch of coins and say, "Okay, oracle, tell me what I want to know." Unless the oracle has a gambling problem, which would be highly ironic.
Yeah, I like that.
Actually, I kind of like that oracle now. That oracle suddenly added a whole new dimension of personality.
Yeah.
I can see the future, but not on pure random chance. That's why I've got a gambling addiction.
Because it's the only time when...
The only time I can't see the future is when the choice cannot be made by a person. Kind of like with the Matrix, right? How the architect says you can't see the future beyond a decision that has not effectively been made.
Oh, yeah.
And thus, if you know who a person is, you will know their future up to a point when they encounter a circumstance when they don't know.
Okay.
Which is a very nice way of that would be a very good thing to add into a D&D campaign to prevent divination from becoming too powerful.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that most of the spells don't really work on a combat sense. Yeah. Which is a shame, because like divination plus combat would make for a really good warrior.
Yeah.
You want a really good bonus to your AC? Divination.
Well, didn't they? I mean, they've experimented with that in various versions of D&D. I think with like the prescient fighter who sort of gets an insane bonus to AC by looking into the future where his enemy's going to attack next.
Well, so that's the thing is, I would have loved to have seen maybe a prestige class where they get to vary it off. You can either have a great bonus to your initiative, to your attack, or to your armor class, but not all.
Yeah.
So you'd get like 1 point per class in your prestige class, up to 10 points to spend, and go back and forth to determine like your initiative versus your AC versus your attack rolls. Or maybe even saving throws. Through reflex and the like, not like, like willpower.
Yeah. What else can we talk about for, I don't know, 10,000 things?
For knowing it all? For being a complete know-it-all? Don't forget, there is always the Cassandra curse to knowing it all. In Greek mythology, the oracle Cassandra knew it all. She could tell the future, but she was cursed. No one would believe her.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so, yeah, she wound up getting like really hella depressed on that sort of thing. Because, like, no, why isn't anyone listening to me?
Well, speaking of curses, though, another downside of knowing it all is all the bad stuff. All of your friends, when they're going to die and how they're going to die.
Well, there is that saying that an optimist is just a pessimist who isn't paying attention. So, yeah, I can definitely see pessimism and omniscience winding up going hand in hand.
I suppose when you're going to die. So what's the point of, finishing off the rest of your life if you already have all the experiences that you're ever going to get?
Well, there's going to be some good experiences there. Sure, you can see the future when you have that first kiss with your one true love, but wouldn't it be better to actually be there at the moment when it happens?
Maybe? I don't know.
And then you have it as a memory to relive later on. Hooray!
Yeah, I wonder.
So, I mean, doing it with a proper balance, sort of thing, like, seeing in the future could be really, really depressing, or actually be pretty good. You just have to, just like with omniscience, as it expands outwards, you have to learn where to focus properly.
I guess, the thing is, you have to ignore a lot of things.
Or just, learn how to deal and cope with them.
Yeah.
Because, you can't save everyone. Not all the time. Even Superman can't do that.
Yeah. What kind of, what if that was a superpower, no other, I guess it's psychic powers. What if you got psychic powers and you suddenly knew the future? No other superpowers, you're still going to die?
Okay, so now I'm rich.
Okay, yeah, first thing of all, you play the lottery or whatever, you get all the money you could possibly need. Or stock market, or however you get.
I would try and actually stay out of the stock market.
Okay. So you do lottery then?
Well, that's the thing. Is
Sports
the stock
games?
market has people monitoring, and if you wind up always getting the right stock at the right time, you will come under investigation.
That's
for
true.
Insider trading.
That's probably also the case in the lottery, but, I mean, you just win one big lottery and then you're set.
Yeah,
but, if you win repeatedly...
$50 million later...
But it might get addicting. I need another $50 million. I spent the last $50 million, and then again and again. They're like, hey, this guy's does he seem like he's always winning money?
See, that's the thing is you win the one lottery, and then you start playing the stock market, and you got a guy to do the stock market for you.
Yeah.
And then you also do your own. I want to play around with the stock market, so I'll buy some of this, sell some of that, and then the other person's non-omniscience or non future sight will help obscure your perfect record.
All right, yeah. Okay, so now you've got this power.
Well, you do also have to do a proper time hiring the right person, the person that's willing to do the investments for you, but not ask questions as to how come your investment changes always work out for the best.
Okay.
So that weird mix of good and loyal / just don't care.
And let's say you live in the same universe as Batman and Superman, and people with superpowers.
Okay, so I'm not the only one.
But yeah, but you were a normal person. You don't have any other superpowers. But what do you do with that now?
Well, buy Cord Industries and get myself some of that Blue Beetle technology to help protect myself. I play the behind-the-scenes game because they have the concept of the know-it-all schemer, the mastermind.
Yeah.
The mastermind's always an evil guy. Why can't the mastermind be a good guy?
Yeah, okay, so you'd be behind the scenes manipulating things.
Nudging things, get this person helping out to make sure that this person rises to the occasion.
Would you use your powers for good, do you think?
Make sure Spider-Man is able to make the rent this month, sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
I guess we're in both universes, so...
Oh, I use an example sort of thing for what I do. It's all of a sudden... Or, maybe it's with my, knowledge of the future, I just try and, do the things that will help out the best. Because, I think Marvel's a better example for this one because a lot of its characters are more Silver Age and thus have more flaws.
Yeah.
Spider-Man doubts his abilities, and they fall on hard times.
I'm going to add one more stipulation into your superpower. You have access to any knowledge of the future, but you have to focus on it in order to. So if you don't know that you don't know something, you'll never find it. But you sort of have to focus and think.
You have to ask the right question.
Yeah, what's
like a Google search.
Yeah.
So without the right search query, you're not going to get any accurate results.
Yeah.
So that's what I do is like once I get myself comfortably situated and me and my family, just
and
try
your co-host Josh there.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. you get the basement suite at the Baxter Building now.
Okay.
But I think I try and nudge things the right way. Make sure that the heroes don't get too depressed or too sad. We're to the point where they want to give up. It's like, oh, Spider-Man's thinking about giving up again, and oh, hey, there I am. Hey, come on, Peter, why don't you come on over to my place? I've got a whole lot of Chinese food. I probably got more than me and my family can handle. Come on, sit down and have a good meal with us. That nice sort of thing that helps recharge a hero's batteries, because just they get burnt out over in Marvel an awful lot.
I guess I took away the thing that I was trying to curse you with, which was the crippling knowledge of how everybody's going to die. But I imagine maybe at some point you might get curious and just, even if your thoughts stray there, it would just pop into your head.
I mean, like, hey, Josh, you're going to die one day.
Okay, yeah, that's not true.
I'd like to make certain that the death of me and mine are not anytime in the near future.
I guess you can change that too. Like, if you find out someone's got cancer, then let's catch that early.
Yeah, it's time for your annual checkup. Please come and get your cancer removed.
Are you, like, in this universe, are you keeping it basically secret from everybody? Or
I would like to keep it on the down low, particularly from places like the government.
Yeah?
The Canadian government in the Marvel universe is deeply evil.
Okay, but I did say DC universe. I don't know what the Canadian government does in the DC.
In that case, you got people like Amanda Waller and other big villains like Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
But I did want to switch it over to Marvel because that is their current issue for the Civil War 2 storyline. There is a man called the Profiler. He can see the future. And now things are set up amongst two groups of heroes. One that want to stop crime before it happens.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we've done this.
And punish the criminals. And the ones who say that you can't punish someone for something they haven't done.
Yeah.
They actually have to commit the crime or attempt to commit the crime before they can get punished.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I wanted to seg it over to the Marvel universe, because that's actually a thing that's really going on with them in their discussions.
Oh, okay.
Because I mean, like how would that's the thing is I would not punish a person who hasn't done the crime, but I would definitely find a way to subtly try and tip off a hero so they're at the right area to foil the crime as it's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the other thing is, in theory, like you could stop crimes before the person. Like, you could stop their motivation for committing a crime. Like, if they, I need, I guess if they're addicted to drugs or something, they need money for drugs, that's hard to stop. But maybe there's something you can do to stop that motivation.
Well, like the Sandman character, they've increased his backstory to such a degree that he's much more than a villain. He's much more closer towards the anti-hero stage when things are going right with him.
Yeah.
He was resorting to crime to help, make ends meet and support his daughter and all that sort of thing. In which case, I could definitely see, going several routes, with my omniscience, in that either trying to find a solid job for him so that he doesn't have to resort to a life of crime, or, once he's got the powers and all that, help him, do good, and pay him. I got some cash, I've won the lottery, I'm playing the stock market, and maybe I'm dipping into the future to see what sort of technologies I can, expedite here to the present. Reed Richards, eat your heart out.
Yeah, you could work for a tech company or even become your own tech company.
Yeah. Or at least work in, cohesion with, be like a brain trust sort of thing. In which case, if I got the cash, then why not help? Like, this is the one big thing about superhero stuff that I have never really understood. Why aren't most of them like trying to work, like in the confines of the legal society that could help get them like permanent pay? Like Spider-Man is almost an allegory for being any non-white, racial, sort of thing that you want. Because the cops, man, as soon as they see Spider-Man, they're willing to shoot 2 warning shots into his skull.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like the newspaper publishers are always trying to publish like the worst possible thing, anything that he does. Huh, yeah. And so it almost winds up as being some people say like, oh, then why make him be like a white guy underneath? It's to get the audience to start realizing what it's like to be the underdog in that sort of situation. It's like trying to trick you in there.
Yeah, well, for a white audience who wants to identify, we need to make them identify with that sort of under. It's
apparent. I don't get it myself, but apparently for a lot of people, it's easier to identify with a person that looks a lot more like you.
Yeah.
More on mental lines. If they think like me, I can I'm this guy. He's thinking like me. He's doing what I do. I don't care if he's like from the 3 generations of the universe previous. He's got tentacles and bunny ears. I don't care. He's thinking like me. He's doing what I'd have done.
Yeah.
He's my bro.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like my sort of utopian thinking, just to bring this weirdly, like I would sort of buy everyone drugs. I'd be like, yeah, no, just like if I could, have that knowledge and like, earn money in the stock market, lottery, whatever, and then just have drugs for everybody for free, whatever they wanted. But I guess that's a
congratulations, you're now a kingpin of crime. You're a drug lord, Josh.
I think. Yeah, you'd probably the first people who would come after me would be the gangs.
The heroes, too, because you're giving
heroes.
Drugs out to all these druggies.
Yeah, but I mean, the
bam,
gangs
man, you've got the green arrows suddenly all around your head.
Yeah.
The green arrows come for you. After Speedy did crack, he's very hard against drugs. Congratulations. Yeah. You stick to your DC world there, Josh. I'm going to stick to the Marvel one.
I might, yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely try and keep it on the down low sort of thing, because once everyone realizes you've got the knowledge, they're either going to try and ask you for some of it or get it from you one way or another.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lex Luthor would probably very much enjoy my omniscience for his own ends.
Do you think probably some villains, depending on the villain's actual like mode or motivation, they might just want you dead because if they're doing something that they want not known.
Yeah.
Well, it's easier if this guy is just not in the picture.
Exactly. So, like, the less they know about you, the better off you are.
Yeah.
Ignorance, in which case, is a defense, as good as any armor.
So let me ask you this. Do you think there are prescients among us and who have risen to the ranks of the billionaires?
There are 9 men, it is said, that know everything. At least in certain fields, and they are the ones that dole out the advances in the various fields, when mankind is ready enough for them.
Okay.
I'll see if I can find the Wikipedia link for that one. It's actually pretty boss to read. I think it's an Indian legend about like the 9 smart men.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really boss when you think about it too, because it's like, oh hey, they don't appear to be assholes. How nice. They don't give us all the knowledge because we'd wind up like hurting ourselves with it. We're not ready for it all at once.
Yeah, I guess like I'd be pretty mad at them for because the world is in not the best state. I mean, it's
you don't eat an entire cake in a single bite, Josh.
I guess I don't know.
You got to dish it out forkful by forkful so that they don't choke. That said, I mean, like how depressing is it if that sort of thing is real and like the best people are trying to. These omniscient people are trying to get humanity towards a better day, and this is still as good as 9 omniscient people can do.
Yeah. Well, imagine, like I said about those guys, they would have, like, any time they wanted, or I guess, like, because I'm giving them the ability to focus on things, but, yeah, they would see a lot of horrific stuff, and they might get completely desensitized to it.
All the more reason to try and fight it.
Maybe, yeah.
Or I don't want to see this anymore, and I will keep fighting humanity until, by God, I don't have to see this in our future anymore.
I'll ask you this, like, do you think...
There is a motive for a good fight for an omniscient person.
Do you think universal knowledge would result in a universal ideology, too? Or do you think they would have evolved to opposing and alternative views and conflict with each other?
Apparently, they're all working in concert, according to the belief. So
Yeah.
there is something to be seen about the bigger picture.
So if they all had the same information, they would all believe the same course of action.
But that's the thing
with
is,
the mass.
according to this, they don't all have the actual same information. They're all focused.
Oh
in
yeah, okay,
specific fields.
sure, yeah. Of their own area.
But they're all smart enough to see the cohesive whole
yeah,
about what it
okay.
would do to release.
And
this.
they get together and they chat with each other about like, what do you know? What do I know? Like,
Yeah, they're like a secret society sort of thing,
Yeah.
like a cabal.
It's weird. Dude. Like you think about people like the president of the United States and the level of conversations that he has, sort of rarely dip down to on the guy on the street like, oh, let's have him go there and stuff. It's all very high level like strategy.
Do you
stuff.
think they changed the syrup at the Waffle House? You don't hear that with the president's conversation.
Well, you might, because his attention might turn to something small for once. But most of what he does, is this high level, like that's his job, is
He's
very
gotta try
abstract.
And see I mean, heck, like right now there's like a lot of police shootings and various civilian shootings going on back and forth. And Obama right now has to try and find a way to help calm people down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's part of his job. Yeah, to be a national voice,
to
a
be the
spokesman,
leader
a
of
leader,
America, the leader of all men and women in America.
Yeah,
Not an easy task. They're a little crazy down there. Mind you, there's a lot of crazy going on this year. 2016. The best way for Obama to make everyone calm down a little bit is just to say, no, 2016 is over. We're starting 2017 tomorrow. Just go to sleep and we'll wake up and it'll be 2017.
That's something Obama could do.
You know what? It's not the craziest thing that's going to wind up happening this year if he does it.
But I wonder if too this is what leads to somebody like Erdogan having losing a bit of control over part of his military, is that he doesn't.
Technically, it wasn't supposed to be his military because they're supposed to
it's the
operate
country's
in
military.
on parallel paths.
That's true. Yeah. Although he did interfere a lot. Like you read the stories and he kind of purged a lot of the higher upper level of military, so they should have been more, and maybe that's why it failed, is that he had more loyal people in the military that were loyal to him, even though he's technically not in charge of it. But yeah,
it's like the branches, the executive and all that stuff in the United States. You're not supposed to have one have sway over the other. Two, each one is supposed to have sway over another one. A can overrule B, can overrule C, can overrule A.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I guess the other thing is he's dealing on very high level, strategic level stuff, and you don't think too much about, okay, we bomb and that means all these people die, And I think it's the same thing with the president of the United States, is how do you, on one level he's got these strategic levels of bullets and planes and rockets and killing people. And then, how does he dip down into... Because he's mentioned something like, I feel it when I hear about people dying, and I guess he's human, so probably does. And Erdogan probably does, too. I would imagine. I don't know. He might be a monster. I wonder if Ivan the Terrible actually, felt in his heart.
He's supposed to try and be a holy guy, so, the big question is whether or not he actually thought what he was doing was right versus, if I don't do this, they'll all kill me...
Yeah, I guess he was pious and Christian, which maybe in some ways kind of justified, because he can say, well, yes, we killed them, but maybe in the next life they'll be okay again.
But if he's Christian, there ain't no reincarnation. There is no other life.
Well, in Christianity, there's
the
heaven.
afterlife, but there's no other life.
Well, yeah, whatever it is.
If there are bad guys fighting them, chances are they ain't going to heaven.
Well, this is one thing that Constantine, I think, is attributed to a quote that's attributed to Constantine, the emperor.
Kill them all, let God sort them out.
That's right.
Yeah. Haha! I actually knew that quote. Everyone uses it, but almost nobody knows where it came from. Constantine.
Well, I don't. That's attributed to. I don't know if it's like they say. It might not
be. And it's probably not exactly how he said it. Kill them all and let God sort them out. But
Yeah, I think he spoke Greek.
He probably said it a lot more eloquently than that. That sounds like something like a madman would scream before, really doing something stupid. But I believe this has gone a little over time this week.
Yeah, okay.
Josh, I hate to say this, but our listeners out there, they're not omniscient.
Oh,
so you're going to have to tell them how they can get a hold of us if they want to relay the information. Because we're not omniscient either. We don't know what they want to say, what they want to tell us.
Well, Google us. No. Send us email, thesimulationist@gmail.com, thesimulationist I got to enunciate all the words, at gmail.com. Also, you can comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist, and our YouTube page, youtube.com/thesimulationist. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Write reviews if you feel like it. If you feel like giving us 5 stars, we would not disagree with you.
Tweet at Josh.
I'm on Twitter at Josh_Trelaffin, TRESLAFFIN is my Twitter handle. Seek us out in all the other ways. We do have a Patreon page also, but that's not a requirement. And I think that's all.
Unless you know something about our monetary future.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If one of those 9 omniscient... Well, I guess if the omniscient people, they don't have to listen because they know already what we've...
Well, that's the thing.
Already know our podcast, right?
Only if the one about the social stuff, the one about the sciences probably doesn't know what we're going to say.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So we could have up to potentially 8 out of the 9 omniscient people listening to us.
So the omniscient people, drop us a little
Hey,
hint.
wait, we get 50 downloads on average, I think.
Right now it's about 50. Yeah.
Wow, so that's almost a 10 out of 5, or 20% of our listening base being omniscient, wise people.
If they're all, yeah.
You know what that means? The other 40 people are in really good company.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I guess we'll wrap up final thoughts, I guess.
Omniscience is difficult, as is anything involving the concept of infinity.
Yeah.
It may wind up being best just as a flat-out state there is nothing omniscient. Even the gods aren't omniscient in your campaign. It does make things a little bit easier to run, and does give chaos a little bit more power. Because if you know everything, then you're inherently in a lawful sort of system.
Probably, yeah. Seems
and
we didn't get into that.
Especially with D&D in this Great Wheel cosmology, it does seem order predominant.
Yeah.
So giving chaos that little extra oomph could help balance scales out a wee bit more.
All right. Yeah, I like it. And I had my little idea of only sort of attention-based omniscience.
Or once you do hit omniscience, you just you can't focus on anything because there's too much.
You just go crazy. I like that too.
Not even crazy. You just wind up sitting down and just effectively going comatose.
Going catatonic, another Lovecraft idea. Yeah, I like it.
You're just there's too much, and you need to see it all. And that's your pitiful little body. I mean, it's not even worth paying attention to anymore, and you'll just keep seeing it all till you die, or they hook you up to the IV.
Yeah, which is I guess if you see parallel realities, you can see whether you die or not, and you can see what would happen if you didn't die, and then you've seen all the other realities. But if you know it all,
and consciousness and what the concept of self exists as who you are and what you know. Doesn't that mean it's okay for you to die in this reality because you don't die in that other one over there, but because you know everything over there, you know you here, so you're still the same you over between here and there.
Yeah. I like it. And then in every reality where anyone attains omniscience, that reality, basically, that person winks out of that reality and they just branch off into all the other realities where they don't, because that's what they opt for. So... maybe
except for that one where we've got robots with AIs that take care of immortal bodies.
Okay, sure.
That's where we will all wind up, because the omniscient you knows the you that you are and is more you than you are, and thus we will all wind up in that one because that's the one where we don't die.
Yeah.
Woo. So I guess we'll see you all there.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again.
And hopefully, give or take, on average, 7 days.
On average, yeah. I've been Josh Trelaffin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.